Alright, this is a video on how I edit all my drone footage as a full-time drone pilot. I am not a professional editor at all. I learned how to do all of this on YouTube and just experience. Been doing this for about a year and a half now, so just take that into account. Yeah, but this is everything that works for me. And yeah, we'll get into it. So first thing you want to do obviously is dump your footage from your SD card onto your laptop. Once you have all of that onto your laptop, you will go into Davinci Resolve. That's the video editing software I use. There's a free version that's honestly really good. I used the free version for a really long time before I eventually upgraded to the paid version just to get a few more effects and stuff. But yeah, the free version is really good if you're balling on a budget. So I'm going to show the video that I'm basing this video off of, just the final result, and then I'll go into how I created it. And this is music that goes with it, but the music is applied on Instagram. So this video is optimized for social media because it's in the portrait orientation. And yeah. So that's the video. I'm going to go into a new project just to show you how I set up my settings. So first thing I do before I even drag the footage in is go up here to File, Project Settings. I change my frame rate to 30 frames per second just because that's what is optimized for Instagram. I film everything in 60 frames per second, but I just change my frame rate for editing to 30 frames per second. Some people do 24 for the more like cinematic look. I like 30 because I like doing slow-mo stuff sometimes. And the more frames per second you have, the better slow motion footage you can do because you're slowing down your frames. And then timeline resolution, I do it at 1920 1080 HD because also that's what's best for Instagram, social media, and stuff. You can also do the Ultra HD 3840 2160. Yeah, you can kind of play around with it, see what you like better. I know Instagram now can do like that 4K footage, especially if you use the Instagram Edits app. But anywho, once you set your frame rate, you will not be able to change it. I, at the beginning, always forgot to change it once I started editing, and then I couldn't go back and change it, so just take a note of that. Then you hit save, and then you will drag all of your footage in. I usually just do it straight from my desktop. This is where I store all my footage. And you can just drag everything directly into this media pool area. This will come up. Since you already set your frame rate, you will want to hit don't change. Yeah. Okay, and then when I showed you the video, it was in that portrait orientation, and that is a setting you can also change, but I don't do that until like halfway into editing because when I'm going through my footage, I want to be able to see the whole clip so that I can frame it how I want because you can adjust things left and right. So yeah, that's just something to note. So the first thing I do is just go through all of my footage up here, and you can preview it by hovering your cursor over the clips. And I just go through all of the footage and drag the clips down here that I like, that I might want to use in the video. And then that might take a while, but once I've gone through all the clips and dragged all the ones that I kind of like down here, then I'll start going through and just cropping them down a little bit if they're super long. Like this one starts out with me not even moving, so I definitely want to crop that out. I usually always try to have movement with each of my clips, so I'll just cut it down until the drone starts moving forward. And then I'll go into speed ramping after this, but make sure the front and end clips end where I want them to, and that there's always movement. Like this one, I'm kind of moving around a little bit until... One thing I do is start recording before I'm ready to get the shot that I want, because it takes a couple seconds to get the movement you want and the speed and the gimbal and all of that. So this is just the cutting tool up here, and I just do that and then delete the highlighted thing, and then now it's moving and starting with where I want it to be. Trim down the end just a little bit so it's an abrupt stop. So yeah, I do that for every single clip. After I get them trimmed down a bit, something I do is start kind of organizing them a little bit. So with these videos, I always know how I want to start and end them. Usually I like to start with one of these clips where I'm far out and then fly in and get close. So I'm gonna take that and move that to the front. And then this clip, I want it to be at the end because I'm also kind of zooming out and going into the fog, which looks cool. So that's going to be the beginning and end. So that kind of sandwiches all of these clips. And whenever I'm going through and trimming them and just looking through them, I like to also kind of put clips next to each other that I know flow kind of well. Yeah, I just try to match movements. For example, these two clips, the drone is moving, like orbiting around the subject to the left, if that makes sense. They're both kind of doing the same movement. So I like to kind of match clips with similar movements right next to each other. And then another thing I do is maybe try to like bunch together a certain subject. Like for this, I kind of wanted all the concrete truck clips next to each other because it somewhat tells a story. Like here, the truck is backing in, the concrete's being offloaded in this clip, and then here we get a closer look of it being offloaded. So that's just kind of a little sequence that I like. And it's a little bit long. Just want it for a couple seconds. For these social media videos, most of these clips are going to be very quick. It's not long form at all. It's something that's supposed to be like engaging to watch and like keep your attention. So I keep most of these clips like pretty short, and I'm about to go through and do the speed ramping. But like maybe like 1 to 5 seconds for each clip. Okay, so after I do a little bit of like first draft ordering of the clips, putting them kind of where I want them to be, I'll go into doing speed ramps. So this clip definitely needs a speed ramp. I'm going to show you how I do it. So for this video, I put a title at the beginning. I'm not going to do that right now. So I need like a couple seconds of it going slow, and you can kind of see what's happening in the video. So to do a speed ramp in Davinci Resolve, I hit Command R, which makes this thing pop up where you can adjust speed. I go down to this arrow, hit Add Speed Points. So basically speed points are like anchors where you can adjust the speed in between those 2 points to be faster or slower. And then we're going to go towards the end, add one more speed point, maybe add like that much of the clip that's going to be normal speed at the end, so add speed point. And then I just drag these together, which increases the speed, and you can see what percentage it's being increased by down here. So here we're at 770. Usually I do it pretty fast. That's still a little slow, so I'm gonna bring it in a bit more. That's pretty good. Okay, so the next thing with speed ramps is you want the transition of the speed to be smooth. Like here it goes from 101% speed up to 10,000%. So that's a pretty big jump. You don't want it to jump just right away. We'll see that in this graph here. We're gonna go up to keyframes, and then you're gonna go hit this middle button right here at the top left. So here is a graph that represents the change in speed. I'm gonna zoom in a bit by hitting Command+. So you can see it jumps up right away without any slope at all. So we don't want that because we want the transition to be smoother. So what I do is highlight these 2 points, go up here, click ease in and ease out. And so that already creates a little bit of a slope transition. We're going to zoom in even more and get it optimized. Sometimes it's a little tricky. There's probably a better way. Oh, there we go. I literally just figured that out. Okay, so I am going to drag this out a bit more and this side a bit more and do that until it reaches a point of where you can't do it anymore. So like you can't decrease the slope anymore. Would that be decreasing the slope? Yes. Okay. So now let's look at that. and see the difference. It's gonna be smoother. It's hard to tell because it's such a fast transition, but if you do speed ramps a lot, you know that that's a smoother transition. So that looks pretty good. So that's how I do my speed ramps. And I'm gonna do that for the other clips, such as this one. Basically do the exact same thing. Okay, once I do all my speed changes, speed ramps, I add an effect, a zoom effect, which just makes it more realistic, like you're flying in and things are zooming past you. So what you do is go up to effects here, click on toolbox, search adjustment clip. You just drag it on here. I don't know if this is included in the free version or not. I think it is, I don't know. And then I zoom in on the clip by hitting Command plus so I can get it more precise. But I just drag this so that it fits that slot of where the speed is increased. And then I go back up to, I go down to Resolve FX. And then I do the zoom blur. There's different kinds of blurs, the radial, directional. I use the zoom because we're zooming in. And you just drag it on there. See how it says FX now? That means that that feature is included. You can see it zooms in. Looks pretty good there. Usually I like to bring down the blur amount, which you do up here. Bring it down just a bit so it's not as intense. That looks pretty good, I feel like. Pretty good and natural. So I do that for all of the clips that have quick speed changes like that. In the final video, I only use speed ramps for this first clip and this final clip. Sometimes I do a lot, sometimes I only do 2, like here. And then other clips you can either like speed up or slow down, like this one I could probably speed up a little bit just to make it more dynamic. You just kind of get a feel for what you want. You don't want to slow things down too much, maybe no more than like 60%, something like that. But the slow-mo just makes things look more cinematic. Like that looks kind of cool, especially with the fog. So you can just play around, play with different speeds and stuff like that, transition between slow and fast. So at this point, I will have the clips in the order that I want, pretty much. Sometimes I switch around the order even until the very end, but like at this point, I have the clips in general mostly where I want them. At this point, I will go ahead and go up to my project settings and change it to vertical resolution. So now you can only see things in portrait orientation. And some of your clips will obviously look different in terms of like your subject. So I don't know, let's say like for example, this clip may have looked like this once you switched it, but what you can do is go to your video transform and just center your subject more by changing the position of it. So you can play around with this. You have a lot of leeway in terms of X axis, but if you move your Y axis at all, you're gonna get that black space, which you don't want. You can also do like zoom in and out. I don't do that too much, or zooming in, I don't do that too much because then you lose some resolution. But those are just some things you can play with to focus on your subject a bit more. So now that all the clips are pretty much in the order I want, I go in and add additional effects just to make things a bit more dynamic. So for instance, on this clip right here, I added the dynamic zoom because if I don't have that dynamic zoom, it's just the truck just sitting there and it's static. It still looks kind of cool with the fog moving across, but I turned on dynamic zoom and basically it just zooms in. If you hit swap, it'll start closer in and zoom out. And really either one is fine, but it just depends on what you want. I wanted it to zoom in and it just does that automatically. So I like doing that just to add some more movement. I think I also did that for this clip. I use dynamic zoom on a lot of my clips. It just adds, you know, some more movement. I think all 3 of these clips I did dynamic zoom. So yeah, that's a handy tool. Something else, another effect that I used on this clip was, and you can look at your effects up here, was tilt shift blur. And this is something you can find in your effects tab. Let's look it up, tilt shift blur. So you just drag it on there, it's already applied. But it adds this blur on the edges. You can also rotate it 90 degrees and the blur would be on the top and bottom. This is just something to like make the clip look a little different. Definitely don't overuse it, but it's something that, I don't know, I just like to add sometimes. You can change the strength of it so it's not as blurry, but you still get a little bit so you can see the difference it makes. I just like to add a little bit just to, it kind of like focuses more on the subject since he's like directly in the middle and it's a very vertical clip. It kind of focuses in more on that. Oh yeah, so here's one more example of speed ramps that I do. It's where you have a large amount of speed at the beginning and then it goes to your normal speed, which sometimes can be a cool shot, so I'll play it here. See, it speeds up and then slows down. That can look really cool. You can also do that in reverse. Start out with a normal speed and then zoom up and then you'd go to the next clip. And you can play around with it in terms of movements, like if this clip were to go into another clip that was also moving forward and looking down, that would look really good. You can kind of, you know, combine those together. I totally didn't talk about this the entire time, but a big thing is music. I like to know the song that I'm using pretty much at the beginning of editing, and so I apologize for not including that right now. But so like I know this is gonna go on Instagram. I find a song that I want to use, and then I also look on Instagram to make sure it's on there so I can like edit this to the song and then I can apply the music on Instagram, if that makes sense. So what I'll do is I'll download the song that I want to use on like Amazon Music, and then I'll import it. I'll drag it into the media pool, which you can do, and then I'll drag the song down here, and you can drag it to start wherever you want. I'm gonna turn this down. But yeah, like I wanted the song to start at the very beginning, so I'm just gonna leave it as normal. But here you can adjust the volume and stuff. And then you can edit to like the beat. So you can also drag this thing in the corner so it fades in a little bit. Sometimes that sounds good. So like this song has very distinct beats. So I try to edit to the beats. So like here, these clips go with the song pretty well. So yeah, editing to the music can be important. Sometimes, I mean, this, I don't know, sometimes it's a lot to like edit directly to the song. So if you're overwhelmed in the beginning and just want to make a video that like looks good visually, don't worry about the music, just find a song that, you know, kind of goes well with it. So yeah, that's the music. I'm gonna turn this down so we don't hear it. The next step, kind of the final step, is doing color grading, correcting the color. So I shot all of these clips in D-Log M on my Mavic 4 Pro. So we're gonna go to the color. Actually, these were a combination of my DJI Air 3 and Mavic 4 Pro. So what I do is go to the color section, right click, go to LUTs. You can download the LUTs for your drone. I haven't done that yet for the Mavic 4 Pro. Usually you can download the LUTs from the DJI website. Like for the Air 3, I downloaded it, the Air 3 D-Log conversion, and then you can bring it in to Davinci Resolve. I forgot how to do that, so you should watch a YouTube video on that, but it's not that hard. So I apply the LUT, makes it look a lot better. The color stuff, I'm not a pro at this, but I just kind of play around. I added another node here, which you can do Option S on your MacBook if you have a MacBook. Delete this. But I add another node because I add a LUT that I downloaded, like a cinematic LUT that just looks like construction-y. Sometimes it's a little overpowering, so I turn it down, the gain. But yeah, basically I just operate in this thing right here. You know, sometimes I'll turn up the temperature a bit to make it look more yellow, especially in construction. I feel like yellowy looks good. Color boost if you want some more color. This already has a lot of color going on, so I'm not really gonna do that much. And you also want to scrub throughout your clip to make sure the color looks good throughout, because like here it looks good, but when you come in it looks a little dark. So I'm gonna adjust that. I'm gonna bring the shadows up a bit. I'm gonna make sure it still looks good from out here, which looks pretty similar. You can adjust your contrast here. I think it already looks pretty good. This is detail, which I use sometimes. It just turns up the detail, makes things look sharper, which sometimes is a good thing to do. When you import to Instagram, it can compress the detail a bit, so sometimes I turn it up to like 5 or 10, but it just kind of depends how I feel. The gain makes it a little brighter, which honestly that looks good. Yeah, highlights, sometimes you use those. Really just like play around. Like I said, I'm not a color or editing expert at all. I just kind of do it until it looks good to my eye. These ones are already color graded. Like this looks really good with the sunset. You can kind of see what I did there. But yeah, that's about it for the color grading. There's tons of videos on how to color grade. I would recommend watching videos on how to like actually do it. But also, like, if your product is going to be on social media, it's not a large screen, so it's like there's a little bit of room for error. If things look worse on like your big laptop screen, it's going to look a little bit better when it's just on a phone. So the final steps are adding things like this text here, which you can just do in under titles in your effects. I just do the normal custom title, and you can adjust settings like size and color and stuff like that. And you can just stack them on top of each other. This one is called Random Write-On, and I just like it because it just like introduces the text and just makes things a little bit different. I like to fade these in and out where you can drag the things on the corners. It just looks good. Fade in and out, make sure they match up. Next thing, oh yeah, I also add like logo. So this logo, have your client send you a high resolution logo, and then this I brought into Canva and I removed the background, and I also added a bit of a drop shadow, which helps for it to stand out a bit more. And yeah, usually when I do the logos, I also add the dynamic zoom because it just looks a little better, and then I fade it in at the beginning. You can't see it because it's black, but I fade it in right here. And then yeah, I add in some noises. This is called like organic wind noise or something, and you can download these online. So I just download them. I have a little like sound effects folder on my desktop, and these just add a little bit more detail to your video. So like when I fly in, I add this organic wind noise, and it just makes it sound cooler. You can add other noises, like sometimes I'll use my camera, which records video, like my handheld camera, and I get audio footage from that, which I will bring in to my video if it's like concrete pouring or just construction noises happening. What you can do is, say for example, this was captured on my camera, not my drone, so it has audio associated with it. I drag it into here. Down below, it would have an audio thing where you can hear the audio happening. You would delete the clip above, but keep the audio, which looks like these green things, and then you can drag the audio wherever you want to go along with your video. So yeah, that's pretty much my editing method. I think the main takeaways are like, don't, I don't know, exclude any kind of shaky footage. Make sure you always have some kind of movement going. Don't keep anything too static. Don't make your clips too long. Like, people will lose engagement in the video pretty quick if your clips are too long. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say about my editing. I maybe missed some things, but yeah, definitely just watch YouTube videos if you want to get better. I know I have so many things to learn, but these are just like the basic steps that I do to make my videos.